Hi, my name is Greg Ekchian, co-founder and CEO of Stratagen Bio, and I'm excited to share with you the novel tissue oxygen sensors we're developing to enable personalized care and improve outcomes for patients across a wide range of diseases. Today, I'm going to focus on our applications in oncology. Some tumors are extremely oxygen depleted to the point where they're termed hypoxic. Hypoxic tumors lead to resistance to radiation, chemotherapy, and immunotherapy. And this causes poor outcomes for these patients, higher relapse rates and lower survival rates. And we see these trends across a wide range of the most common and deadly cancers, from prostate, breast, head and neck, pancreatic, brain, the list goes on. And the scale is truly profound. 1 in 6 deaths in the US is cancer related, and half of all tumors are hypoxic. So this is a problem that faces a wide range of the population, both here in the US and internationally. Now, you might ask, what can we do about it? We know these tumors are harder to treat. Are there any options? And the answer is yes. One option is boosting the radiation dose to portions of the tumor that are extremely oxygen depleted. We can pick a different chemotherapy, modify the tumor environment to make it more susceptible to the current standard of care, or monitor these patients more closely to see if they relapse. The problem lies in identifying these patients before treatment begins. That's a key component to implementing these hypoxia targeting therapies. Now, why can't we do that? Much of the historical data was collected using an electrochemical probe. And these probes were great because they were quantitative and absolute, but they had significant shortcomings. They were extremely invasive, and they prevented the adoption of these technologies as standard of care because it wasn't practical to repeatedly measure tumor oxygen at multiple locations using a tethered metal probe. Alternatives, more recently, have focused on imaging. Things like PET-CT with hypoxia targeting tracers. These were much more workflow compatible, but they provided qualitative or indirect data. This data isn't actionable in the same way that quantitative data is to improve these patient outcomes. So unfortunately, we live at this intersection where we have a quantitative option, but it is too invasive, and a qualitative option that's more workflow compatible. And that's exactly where Strategen Bio is focused on addressing the shortcomings. Our Oxytrack sensor is a quantitative and direct measurement of tissue oxygen. A single insertion of the sensor can remain for extended periods, offering the ability to measure oxygen over days, months, and even years. It's measured non-invasively using MRI with standard pulse sequences, so not requiring any changes to the MRI hardware. It's made completely of medical grade silicone, and it's protected by 1 issued patent and 1 pending patent. So in the bottom left there, you see one of our Oxytrack sensor formats. These are our Oxytrack seeds. They're about 1.5 millimeters in diameter and 3 to 5 millimeters in length, depending on the specific application. These sensors can be placed in the tissue through a needle or during an intraoperative procedure where the tissue is already directly accessible. We have a lot of flexibility in how these sensors look and what their shapes and sizes are, what their form factors are. We can do everything from injectable microparticles to these seeds to coating and incorporation of these sensors into existing or modified medical devices. We've validated this technology in 2 preclinical models. And when I was a postdoc at MIT, we actually ran a pilot human clinical trial in patients with cervical cancer receiving radiation therapy in collaboration with Brigham and Women's Hospital. As I mentioned, these sensors are measured non-invasively using MRI. So you have a sensor that constantly is equilibrating to the oxygen environment of the tumor. And on demand, when a clinician deems that information necessary, they can read it out using MRI. The sensor functions based on the paramagnetic nature of molecular oxygen. Molecular oxygen diffuses into and out of the sensor depending on the oxygen in the surrounding environment. And the concentration of that molecular oxygen in the sensor dictates the MRI properties of the material. The sensor being made of silicone also acts to exclude biological and aqueous material from the surrounding environment, ensuring that we have a material that is being influenced only by the molecular oxygen. So as far as how this sensor might be used clinically, in the case of radiation oncology, we would have a patient with a biopsy-confirmed cancer. We would insert our sensors using existing procedures, again, really focused on workflow compatibility to ensure that we don't disrupt the current standard of care and make sure that adoption of the technology is easy. We then measure it during existing MRI scans, and then that information is used to plan how the patient should be treated. And in the case of radiation oncology, dose distribution would be determined based on tumor oxygen, higher doses to the low oxygen region, potentially lower doses to the more well oxygenated regions. And then this process can be repeated as frequently as necessary. There have actually recently been 2 linear accelerators combined with MRI scanners that have been cleared by the FDA. So this gives the option of doing MRI scans in real time or daily based on a patient receiving radiation therapy. So we're really at a time in the radiation oncology space where there's a lot of synergy between MRI and the current standard of care, enabling our technology to integrate quite seamlessly with the current workflow. As far as additional use cases, I mentioned we were focused initially on radiation oncology. That's our beachhead, but there's the broader oncology applications around chemotherapies and immunotherapies. Also other forms of radiation beyond external beam like brachytherapy. Also ischemic injuries, trauma, tissue transplantation, any application where oxygen would influence decisions by clinicians and treatment planning, our sensor has a home there. We're always looking for opportunities to collaborate. We're looking to build out clinical collaborations with clinicians that are interested in using this technology, either in clinical trials or as standard of care for improving the outcomes for their patients. Therapeutic collaborations with companies developing technologies targeting specifically hypoxic tumors or other oxygen modulated therapies. Manufacturing partners, both for producing our sensor, but also integrating our technology into their existing and new product lines. And then research and clinical trials. We see this both as a clinical standard of care tool, but also as a tool to enable a whole host of new therapies. This being the only quantitative workflow compatible sensor that's available, we see this as a great opportunity to partner with the folks that are developing the next wave of therapies. Again, my name is Greg Ekchian, co-founder and CEO of Stratagen Bio. I'd be more than happy to talk to anyone who's interested in learning more about our technology or thinks there's an opportunity for Stratagen to work with your company or your team. Thank you very much, and looking forward to taking any questions.